I'm praying for yours, you know.
Hey Patrick, this is Anita Moy's room. Sorry? This is Anita Moy's room. This is the Anita Moy True Heart Digital Multimedia Studio. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, man. How you doing, man?
Sorry for the rush.
It's a party. We got a party in here. Okay.
So,
When you're ready to go, I'm ready to go, man.
thank you very much for coming. Today we have David Wu, who is going to present something very interesting. He belongs to the division of ICT in education, and he's going to speak about something related to anonymity. Anonymity, as you know, means it has a Greek root of no name.
Yes.
No name. So, of course, it's one of the big issues in computer and then ICT-related education. And then he's going to present his research as a PhD student. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jay. Hey. So my name is David. I'm a second-year PhD student in the ITS division. If you're wondering, my presentation is on my blog, and that's my blog, and this is my blog address. And I also set up a back channel, so if you have mobile devices, you can comment and ask questions while I'm presenting, and I can address those later. I'm actually glad you're here. I need your feedback. I need your help, because, in fact, this presentation is not really about my research. It's about a small part of my research, and I'm actually writing a book chapter about it. So this presentation is based on my book chapter abstract. And so we'll be exploring today some of my ideas and thoughts about what I want to include in this book chapter that I'm writing. And you can see the abstract on my blog. Okay? I'll be using a combination of Poplit and Prezi to present. And again, they are available on my blog. The address is over there. All right. So again, the title of this presentation is Rethinking Anonymity in an Age of Increasing Technological Change, Cases of Pedagogical Technologists in Schools. My aim is, in all of this, to explain some of these important words so that we can have a common ground understanding of what it is I think I'm going through. All right. Hopefully you can use it in your research. Hey, hello. Are we on? Yeah? Okay, this is the gist. The gist is this. What is my problem here? Basically, I have to apply some idea of ethics, particularly anonymity, to my research. And I find it a bit difficult given my context. So I want to share with you and explore with you how I'm trying to make my research more anonymous and allow it to adhere more to this sense of ethics. Okay? And to do that, I'll give you a history and background about ethics, this certain sense of ethics, as well as give you some background on my study, and then the methodological and political considerations that went into applying the sense of ethics and anonymity to my research, and then what exactly I did and am doing, and then implications for you, me, and everyone. Okay, first, what are we talking about when we talk about ethics? I'm going to share with you some of my assumptions. All right, these are the basic assumptions that I'm operating off of. Ethics is a certain sense of culture. So when we say like things are like unethical or things are ethical or less ethical or more ethical, we're actually talking about a value set. It's like substituting the word ethics for like Chinese or Peruvian. You get an idea that, okay, some things are like Chinese and some things are Peruvian, some things are Korean, some things are less like that. So when we talk about ethics in our context, we actually mean a particular value set. But it's not a clear value set. It's very dynamic and it's very ambiguous. Right? There's no authority on what we have, on this idea of ethics and all that it encompasses and what we should all do. A part of ethics, what I'm dealing with in my research, has to do with confidentiality, and I just throw a few words out there. Confidentiality, for me, that means not disclosing things, information that might cause prejudice to people. All right? And anonymity is a part of that, confidentiality, and that, again, going back to what Jay says, is about obscuring things, making sure that people cannot be identified. And we do that to protect people. Again, these are purposefully ambiguous definitions. I'm just trying to establish a baseline that anonymity, what I'm talking about, is obscuring information, protecting people's identities. All right. Okay, so this culture, this certain idea of ethics came from, I guess, from a historical standpoint, from certain experiments and research experiments that were considered unethical, all right, that were perhaps the antithesis of this culture that we're trying to develop. And now, in our context, we can see that this value set, this ambiguous value set, this dynamic value set, is being institutionalized on several levels. We actually see it around us, all right, in our context. We see things like in our universities, such as like ethics lectures, institutional review boards. We read literature on ethics. From a legal standpoint, we see ordinances. There are privacy commissioners and data protection authorities. And again, we implicate ourselves. This is our context. As Sedeka pointed out, in the Amazon, in the deepest, darkest Amazon, there are no ethics. This culture does not exist. Right? We are in it. We are students here. This is a part of our life. We have to apply it to our research. If we were in the Amazon, well, we wouldn't have to do this. But I have to do this. And I have to do this in a context where things are changing. Again, this certain value set arose from the 20th century, certain types of experiments, research experiments, but now we are in an age. Hi, hey, William, you're here. That's great. So we are in an age of increasing social, technological change. We have many more ways of doing, many more ways of socializing with each other using technologies, ways of doing. And there are technologies that have been, well, they're created, some disappear, some change. But we have many more means to communicate with each other, to be social with each other, to share our identities with each other in this age. And that's cool, right? I mean, it changes all that we do. It changes you, me, the way we do things with our crazy smartphones, like what I'm doing right now. All right? It leads to new applications for people practitioners as well as researchers. Researchers can do more now with social technology in the same way that all of us, just whether or not we're researching, can do new things. And it leads to emerging and innovative social research. We can research these things, right? These new technologies, how people are using new technologies to be social. Okay, and now I'll explain the problem by explaining my research. Okay, here we go. So, I study pedagogical technologists. I made up this word because there is no word to describe this group yet. This role in schools is emerging. And these are people who are not teachers in a traditional sense. They're not technicians. We don't have a very clear idea of what they're doing, which is why I'm researching them. But they exist in schools, and they exist in certain schools, a few schools. It's an emergent role. And they support the pedagogical aspect of teaching through IT. Again, they don't support the technical aspect. They're not technicians. All right. I purposefully use this Avengers picture here as a metaphor because they are extraordinary people. They do extraordinary things in schools, but we don't have a very clear idea of what they do yet. Who are these masked Avengers? All right, and that's what I'm trying to uncover in my research. Okay, here are some of the important things I found out. One is, what exactly do they do in their interactions? What they do is they try to explain technological pedagogical change, how technology can transform or change teaching and learning. They try to explain that and facilitate that amongst people in the school. And how they do that is they share practices, what we can do, right, all the kinds of cool things that we can do, as well as the beliefs, values, and assumptions that underlie all of these behaviors. So that's actually what they're trying to do. They're trying to transmit all of this knowledge between stakeholders in schools. And what, in fact, they're doing is building a community of practice. Their mutual engagement is technological, pedagogical change. And in doing all of this, I've noticed that they are high-profile figures, and their organizations that they work for are high-profile. And what I mean is, for example, everyone here in this audience, if I were to name one of the people in my study, most likely you would more likely be familiar with that person than if I just pick a random person from that school, for example. In the same way, high-profile organizations, if I said the name of the school, most likely you would be more familiar with the name of the school than if I just picked any school in Hong Kong or in the world. Okay? So these are my findings. I also found out, well, they love using social technology. All right? You could call it Web 2.0. I just call it social technology. All right, here are the things that I had to reconcile. These are the things that I had to think about. Methodological and political considerations. Methodological considerations. Well, I have 5 cases of pedagogical technologists, and I want to provide some richly descriptive product. You know, the findings emerge from the data, right? So I present, oh, I noticed this, and then I present some of the data. And that's what I really want to do. Of course, when I have to apply this culture of anonymity, this ethical culture to my research, I have to make it somewhat less descriptive. I have to maybe change a few things, obscure masked data. So I'm trying to balance that. All right. So what I need is to balance the culture with, I guess, what I believe are the methodological requirements. And this was a kind of a problem too, and I raised it actually in Barry's seminar, the idea that I'm studying a community. And if you know one person in the community, and if you read my study and can discover this person, most likely you can discover the organization and the teachers. And then you can uncover the organization that works very closely with this organization, and then all of the other organizations that are mentioned in my study. It's not too difficult, I think. So in fact, when I'm talking about this community and presenting findings of my community, well, the risk is you can find out everything about the community. So to know just a little about this community is in fact, I believe, to know a lot of things about the community. There are a lot of identifiers, just in cases. For example, as regards the qualities of my pedagogical technologists, hey Manzer, they are experts in certain technologies and pedagogies. And I throw a few things up here. How do I make this more anonymous? How do I protect these individuals who are in fact experts in using these kinds of things? How do I even describe this technology in such a way that it doesn't give away the person who is an expert in this technology? They work for organizations. Again, these might not be the organizations that they work for. These are just examples. And how do I obfuscate or obscure certain organizations so you don't find out who these people are and then find out who everyone else is? Because again, as one of my cases remarked, it's like there's only one organization that controls 21 schools in Hong Kong. Oops, no, that's not it. And of course, this goes back to the richly descriptive product. These guys are prolific users of social technologies. They are out there. They are tweeting. They are teaching courses outside of their schools. They are writing blogs. They are maintaining expansive social networks. And how do I include that data? You know, for example, when I'm talking about how they build community, I want some data to back that up, and I want to show you that. But how do I show you the tweets that they're making, right, to build community? How exactly do I do that? Because if I give you a bit of that, you can easily just search, and that gives everything away. All right? So these are some of the things that I have to consider. That they use this to build community. It's an important part of the findings. How to exactly present these kinds of things. Here's the political process. You know, it's not only that people use these technologies, it's also that each person has a different opinion about how anonymous they want to be, how much they want to give away, how often they want to be mentioned in the research. And I just kind of developed this to show you some of the things I was grappling with. Some people have less identification control. They're open data. You can find everything about them on the internet. And they want to find everything about everyone else on the internet. And that's actually what they do. There are other people who jealously guard their data and their brand. And they, I guess to a greater degree, remain anonymous on the internet. Or, yeah. And ironically, you know, I studied 5 people, 5 cases. Although all of them use social technology, some were open data. Some were on one end. They were open data. They just share their ideas for free, share who they are for free. Their names are out there. They promote themselves. They know a lot about marketing. But on the other hand, there were other pedagogical technologists who used the social technology in a very curious way. They locked down all of their channels. They locked down all of their streams and their tweets. And you know, you had to actually ask them in order to get their information from these social technologies. All right. So I'm trying to, being a social researcher, I'm trying to create a democratic, inclusive, beneficial process. Trying to include everyone's opinions on this matter, including yours, which is why I'm actually presenting to you. So that we can build a better, I guess, more trustworthy research project. All right. So I have to balance stakeholders' points of views. All right. Okay, are we there yet? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually what I did and what I'm doing. And I feel like I could use a lot of help here. Okay, what did I do? I'm establishing a degree of anonymity for the study. I'm trying to reconcile all these political and ethical considerations. One is I went through some of these institutional mechanisms. All right, I developed a plan to preserve anonymity and to apply this ethical culture to my research. And some people saw it at this university, and they said, okay, good, good. And then I took that and met with all of my research participants and gave them something to read, okay, and then I also talked to them too. So I gave them verbal explanations, gave them written explanations of what's going on and the risk at the start of the research. And they're like, okay, good. And then they sign things. All right, so now we have some institutional procedures that help me to say, hey, this is a good degree of anonymity. During my research, I used a lot of participant checking. And that entailed after each data collection instance, I would go through the data. Not only would I analyze the data, but also I'd start anonymizing my data and starting to obscure names and places. And after that, I would give it to my research participants, and they would look at it and comment, about all sorts of things, including the degree of anonymity. Of course, not everyone did that, though. In fact, a lot of the research participants, even though I give it to them for their benefit to check whether or not they're comfortable with everything that's on there, some people just don't read things. They do other things with their lives. So what I plan on doing, I haven't done this yet because I haven't finished all my case report writing, is I'm actually going to go back to them and do what I did initially and explain what's going on and the consequences of this research and the potential risk to them with the publication of this research. So I'm going to basically force them to read what I've written so that they can, again, truly appreciate, engage their comfort with how they're being revealed. 1 minute? Okay. And all through this process, I've had discussions with all sorts of people about which data to include in the degree of anonymity and how to anonymize these people and the data. I've talked to my supervisors, the research participants, and you guys as well. And again, this is a part, I believe, of being a good social researcher, is to be social and to talk to many people, make this a democratic, inclusive process. We're dealing with something that's, it's not black and white. Okay, what are the implications? Hello. There are a lot of things that we need to consider. All right, anonymity is not just a paragraph, all right, in your writing. It's something that involves an understanding of culture and an understanding of people, the way we do things. It's an understanding of your methodology, and I think most importantly, it's an understanding of your context. And this circle here was developed after I spoke with one of my primary research participants and explained all of this to her and about my fears and worries. And she was like, you know what, David? If you did this in some district in the United States, well, you know what? It would be totally anonymous to me. I would have no idea what's going on here. And then I was like, oh, you're right. I have to take a step back and actually implicate myself. Because, to be quite frank, I am a part of this community. I bring this perspective that everyone's so easily identifiable because I follow them around and I'm a part of this community. To a lesser extent, you guys are too, because you guys are part of this Hong Kong U group, and you might be familiar with some of these names and organizations. But for someone in, I don't know, let's go Peru. For someone who is in Peru, right now, reading my research, you know what, it's pretty darn anonymous. And all the steps that I've taken, I think they seem pretty reasonable. Not only to the research participants, to me, and other stakeholders, but I think I've maintained a fair degree of anonymity, an appropriate degree of anonymity. And that's it.
David, Q&A, some questions, David? If you don't have, I think. Sure.
Just curious whether, because your topic is very unique, pedagogical technology, so very interesting talk. So the issue you're talking about, so how does it relate to like more general educational research? What would you say? Like people just go to school to study something, to interview people. So what is the lesson you have learned? Is it very specific to your topic, what you're talking about? Because it's about social technology, it's about a very small group of people. So it means, it seems it's a bigger issue.
Yes.
But what is, I just want to know, what is the implication to a bigger context?
Good. I like this. I applied this principle, this culture, this value set of ethics to my research. But for all of us who are qualitative researchers or social researchers, it's important, again, to maintain the social and talk to lots of people about this. Because we cannot assume that we all have this same appropriate degree of identity control, right? And we cannot assume that, and it's not our job to impose a degree of identity control on people. That's actually my assumption. It's important to talk to lots of people like I'm talking to you now, to kind of build understanding, to construct meaning of how we can apply this kind of very ambiguous, dynamic value set, this ethics, to our research. I mean, again, it's like the thing we had on Wednesday. That's a part of that process, right? Just kind of talking through these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Sampo, I want to know, because we are not sure that the pedagogical technology do in schools. So how do you recognize these case participants for your study? Because you interview them. And if are there any identifiers or indicators to identify the function of their role?
Good. Yes. All right. I like this question because it has a lot to do with concept validity. How do I know a dog is a dog? Right? I've read about a dog, but then I go into this park, and how do I know that dog is a dog? Right? Well, initially, I didn't know the pedagogical technologists were pedagogical technologists. Right? You only have an idea, and then you start collecting data. Does it align with my definition of what a pedagogical technologist is? And in fact, and I'm thankful, all of them, in fact, ultimately are pedagogical technologists according to my definition. If they weren't, then, well, I'd have to remove them, right? So that's how I ultimately discovered. It was actually only through data collection that I can validate that these people, in fact, the dog is in fact a dog, right? How do I figure out what the dog does? Well, I observed, I interviewed, I took pictures, I collected documents, and now I have to explain a bit about the methodology. I grounded my data collection and analysis. This is not grounded theory. This is not grounded theory. It's the same thing, I just don't call it grounded theory. Right? That could be for another discussion. But what I did was I used initial data collection and analysis to inform subsequent data collection and analysis, the kinds of things I was looking for. It's like, in these instances, I noticed these concepts emerging. Okay, so in subsequent data collection iterations, do I still see these kinds of things? I'm looking for these things. If not, why not? And ultimately, the kinds of concepts, the findings that I found, were the most prominent. That is, they appeared the most in my research. So, for example, and they're using NB, but you can code things, and then they can create a tree diagram, and it's like, okay, this concept emerged the most. It was item coded the most. Did I answer your question?
So actually, that what you mean is by collecting data, you can actually recognize these technologies. Yes.
Yes. And again, it's hard to do otherwise. For example, if you are thrown into an ocean, all right, and you need to find land, you know what? You're not going to find land by just sinking and not swimming. So you just have to start swimming. You actually just have to start going in a direction. And then maybe you start changing directions based on what happens, the feedback that you get, right? Okay, well, I've been swimming for like 5 days now. I haven't seen any land. Maybe I should just go this way, you know? So, I mean, that's actually what I did. The nature of my research was very exploratory, because again, it's unclear what these guys do. So I just have to start trying to understand. Right? It's just some initial stuff about what these guys do.
I'd like to follow up that question of Suen. Okay, you drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
You start swimming because you don't want to die. But however, since this is a research, I guess that since you said that in the presentation that educational pedagogical technologies is a term that you came out later, not at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know in which direction you start swimming, because I bet that you swim against the sun or
Yes.
down, but in some direction. So I want to see what direction that was.
Yes. So what I did was I had initial interviews with my primary research participants. So I sat down with all 5 of my pedagogical technologies. All 5 of them have different job titles, by the way. And this is actually a part of the problem. There's no standard job title for this. When I say teacher, you have the word teacher, you have this idea. Say student, you have this idea. When I say digital literacy coach or ICT curriculum leader, you have no idea what's going on here. These are bankrupt terms. That's a part of the problem, right? What's the difference between a digital literacy coach and digital literacy advisor? They're real terms that people have in schools. We need to make meaning of that. So what I did was I met my 5 research participants, I explained my research to them, and then we brainstormed. What are some opportunities for learning? What are some things or people that we can interview and instances that I can observe that give me a feel for what you're doing? And so we brainstormed for these things, these items, and then we agreed upon certain things to observe and certain people to interview. And what happened was after that we had snowball effects. So when I start going to these observations and these interviews, and I start seeing things and hearing things, and I'm talking to people, I hear about other things. I hear about other things that these people do and other people that these people work with. And I say, okay, well, how about next time, all right, when we talk again, why don't we do this, and observe this? So that's actually how I started swimming. It was a partnership with the primary research participants and just paying attention to the kinds of things that were coming out. Again, grounding the data collection analysis.
Last question.
Okay, just follow up. So, apart from talking to the person, the so-called pedagogical technologies, do you also talk to other stakeholders, like the one who creates this post with other names, okay, and maybe students, how they see what this person is doing, and the colleagues, to see the role this person is playing in schools? Would it help the swimming process?
Yes, I did speak to principals. I did speak to students in different organizations. I spoke to colleagues, their colleagues. I spoke to parents.
Did it triangulate to a certain extent?
Yes, very much.
Very much.
Yes. Yes. And that's part of, I guess, maintaining validity, triangulating all these things.
Yes, I think that's good.
I didn't just take their word for it.
Okay, good.
Okay, that will be it. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. I have an article like I said, to discuss about evidence in concept.
Oh, good, I like that.
Not now, not now. We're moving.
Cool. Be in touch, bro. Thank you. William, how was it, man?
How was it?
Oh, thanks, William. Appreciate it.
Inspiring. Yeah, good.
Appreciate your support, man. It was good. Thank you, William.
就这一本数据交易中，不是它的松鼠小，你知道吗？松鼠小。
Yeah. Something Mark Bray suggested, so I was just like, all right, I'll just explore this. I'll just try it. Scientist. Positivist. Positivist.
Get ready for more combat.
Yes, I know who the positivists are.
Baby. I think this is yours.
Oh.